Well, well, well. I hope you guys haven't gotten too tired of Charlie Kirk stuff, because we're covering... No, we're not actually. I'm just joking. We're not covering more Charlie Kirk stuff. That was a little bit of a meme. You see, this story has kind of dominated the news cycle, like, several times over every other story people are paying attention to. And it has been the thing that, surprisingly, was able to successfully distract a large number of people from being invested in the release of the Epstein files. It has never been more obvious that Trump is a pedophile. We have never been closer to getting the undeniable Epstein files evidence of this, and now this Charlie Kirk story is really pulling from it, which, let's just say I'm sure the right is not mad about that right now. I'm sure Trump is not mad about that little detail right now. However, as we speak, the Democrats are fighting hard in Congress to get the Epstein files released. That's right, they have them. The information that's been trickling out, despite the Republicans' pushback, is because of the work of almost all of the Democrats and a select few Republicans working in Congress to have these files released. We've had some small things come out that have been able to, like, trickle through and couldn't be blocked, but the Republicans have been largely successful in blocking the lion's share of information from releasing. Most of what has been able to come out has been stuff they've been able to warrant out or subpoena or whatever the term is from the Epstein estate. That's where a lot of the juicy stuff has come from, particularly the letter to from Trump that we finally got, and Epstein's 50th birthday book. Those all came from the estate due to this push by the Democrats in Congress. There has been a big stopping, though. In the last few days, particularly since the Charlie Kirk story, Congress Republicans have decided, wait a second, no one's paying attention. We can get away with blocking the Epstein files and no one will realize it's us doing it. And so they are actively blocking the Epstein files from getting released, and Democrats are fiercely fighting to get them out. And the only reason this is happening is because not enough people are paying attention to see what's happening. This is one of those moments where we're going to feel a lot like Candace from Phineas and Ferb. You know, where we're like, please look, just look, it's happening, guys. Like, they're doing it. They're covering it up right now in front of all of you. But everyone's focused on something that's got their attention, and they're not going to look and pay attention, more likely than not, until all this is done and over with. And then it'll be back to who is really covering up the Epstein files again. Even though literally a month later, or a month before, it'll have been clearly the Republicans in Congress fighting against its release. Candace is the perfect analogy, Lamau. It really does feel like that, doesn't it? Anyway, let's go ahead and check out this video on this topic, on the continued effort by Republicans to block us from getting the Epstein files. This shit is infuriating, and I don't want us to forget this story just because the Charlie Kirk stuff is so big. Can't fall into that trap.
Ghislaine Maxwell didn't testify in her own defense at her criminal trial, but she did give civil depositions. She was incredibly evasive, and when she wasn't evasive, she outright denied any of the conduct that is at issue here. But as you referenced, she was charged with 2 counts of perjury by the Southern District of New York. They didn't ultimately try her on those counts because they obtained convictions on the sex trafficking charges. And those convictions they believed were sufficient to put Ghislaine Maxwell away for a long time. That, of course, is now somewhat in doubt because she's obtained that transfer to a lower security facility and because the president continues to dangle the possibility of a pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell. But if you listen to victims and their lawyers, if you listen to prosecutors, Ghislaine Maxwell's credibility has long been in doubt. And she has, in turn, tried to ruin the credibility of others. Simone, you and I were talking before we began, and I said that the Bloomberg reporting didn't much surprise me because although these were several thousand emails from a Yahoo account owned by Jeffrey Epstein, we have seen emails between the two of them in civil litigation, emails that have been unsealed. And one of them that has stuck with me that I have a picture of in my phone because it bothered me so much.
What's so crazy about it, wait, they had emails the entire time? Yes! Yes! That's been the whole point that Democrats have been making this whole time, is that they've had access to all of this and haven't been able to release it because Republicans have been blocking it. That is why this whole Epstein debate is so frustrating. The left does not have the platform to reach people and show them what is happening. The majority of Americans are still like, who's hiding the Epstein files from us? Is it Trump? Maybe it's not. It's still so up in the air for them. They're not all yelling at Trump for it. A lot of them are blaming just the establishment, quote unquote. They're not blaming the Republicans, who are the party behind hiding the Epstein files. They're the ones claiming they don't exist. Meanwhile, the Democrats are yelling, yes, they do. Yes, they do. We've seen them. We have them. We're trying to get them to you. Please pressure Republicans into releasing them as well.
Was Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein talking about Virginia Giuffre. She is perhaps the most famous victim and unfortunately died by suicide earlier this year. In 2015, I just want to pause there because that is a decade plus.
Are we sure she committed suicide, by the way? Because, like, I don't know. I'm just saying.
After Ghislaine Maxwell is telling Todd Blanche her work for Jeffrey Epstein has mostly wrapped up. This is the conversation that they have from Epstein to Maxwell. You can issue a reward to any of Virginia's friends, acquaintances, family that come forward and help prove her allegations are false. And then he continues to detail what he thinks are her strongest or most damaging allegations, and there are two of them. But the fact that they are having that conversation in 2015, as Ghislaine Maxwell is involved in a defamation lawsuit against Virginia Giuffre, Jeffrey Epstein behind the scenes, still at that point uncharged by the Southern District of New York, telling Ghislaine Maxwell,
I love how, Ghislaine Maxwell in particular and Epstein have a history of suing their victims for defamation for coming out to talk about it. And then meanwhile, Johnny Depp sues Amber Heard for defamation because of an anonymous story she tells about being in an abusive relationship with an unnamed man. Johnny Depp openly alleges that she's talking about him, confirming the mild speculation via the Streisand effect, thus creating a basis to argue in court that she was defaming him by anonymously herself. I think she was public, but the partner she was talking about, the relationship, was anonymous in the article that she gave her statement in. And so Johnny Depp got mad, confirmed the suspicions, I guess, that she was talking about him, despite the fact she never said it was him. From there, it, of course, proceeded to hurt his bottom line. There was backlash because he more or less admitted to being the guy in that horrible story that had gone viral. It hurt his income, and he thought, okay, I now have basis to sue for defamation now, or I guess libel, and defamation, because she then, proceeded to talk about it on, certain shows, because it became such a big story after he confirmed it. And so he sues her for libel and defamation, starting in America. Her dog stepped on a bee. He sued her for libel and defamation, starting in America, and lost. Mind you, it was not a case of him being put up on trial. At no point was he on trial. Keep that in mind. Never was he on trial, other than in the court of public opinion, for what she had said. He's the one who was like, I'm taking you to court over this. And he took her to court and lost in America because he was not able to prove that she didn't have the right to say what she did. And frankly, a lot of the evidence that came out suggested that at least the core of what she said was provably true. And so then what Johnny Depp did, because it really hurt his career, was he decided to then sue her again. And I believe he actually went through with this lawsuit in the UK. This is the big lawsuit that, all the memes come from. The shitting on the bed, the dog stepped on a bee, all these things that you guys know came from the second lawsuit, where he sued her again. And she was always the one put on trial, mind you. But the point of this lawsuit was basically just to be on TV. Sure, a settlement win would be nice, right? But the point was, this is going to be, oh, is UK first, then US. Failed in the UK. Oh, yeah, failed in the UK, and then did it in the US. The goal was for it to be extremely televised. Like, extremely, extremely televised, because what really mattered was the court of public opinion. Johnny Depp wanted to start getting movie roles again. He wanted Twitter to stop hating him. He wanted to start making money and to be beloved, right? And to do that, he had to destroy the credibility of Amber Heard. So he goes into court. He hires a lawyer that, I don't know if you guys know this, but his lawyer, that woman, that I forget what her name is, that's the same lawyer Destiny hired in his revenge porn lawsuit that he's in right now. He hired the same lawyer, I'm pretty sure. I'm like 90% sure he hired that same lawyer. This is a lawyer that very wealthy media figures hire when they need a attorney that isn't necessarily going to be legally sound in their arguments. They will be, at least enough, but that their performance is going to be what sells it. And if you've seen the clips of Johnny Depp's lawyer in that courtroom, she was a fucking warrior, dude. Oh my god. And the way, like, she became so popular. She became a celebrity because of that. That is the kind of lawyer she is. She is the kind... He hired a law firm and a lawyer that specializes in building a narrative that will be told in court that is just going to stick with people and will get you the win. And being a televised, massively broadcasted trial meant that their story, their law firm's story, was bound to go super viral. And that's where you get like all of these like talking points that come from that side of things, right? And what's really weird is the fact that like people turned a story in which a woman anonymously talked about going through a toxic, abusive relationship into, how dare you talk shit about this man who is significantly older and more wealthy and famous than you, and yet was married to you anyway. But people totally forget about that. A man who everybody who's ever worked with him says he was a drunken, alcoholic, drug addict, you know, who was hard to work with. It's like people just decide to throw all that stuff away because they wanted to believe she was the true villain. And he was just a poor, innocent, you know, male genius who was, you know, succumbed to the whims of an evil, evil woman like Amber Heard. The fact is, we only ever knew about any of this because she anonymously talked about being in an abusive relationship just for the sake of empowering other women, not for the sake of herself. She never threw anyone under the bus. He threw himself under the bus in the first place. So yeah, I don't even know how we got into the stun lock, but like, I think it had something to do with, no, it actually does. All those details are so accessible, and yet the vast majority of people invested in that story don't know them because a particular side always has the microphone. They always have like 90% of the microphones. And so if one side is actually like saying, guys, look, it's right here, it's happening right here. If they only have 5 or 10% of the microphones and the other side saying, there's just nothing to see here, has 90%, you're just not going to get the truth out there. And that's what's so frustrating about this, is the Republicans are in front of everybody. In the wide open, they are covering up the Epstein files and fighting the left. The Democrats are the ones trying to make it public, and they are fighting the Democrats to make it private, to keep it private. But no one's looking. No one's looking. And the left does not have the platform large enough necessary to say, hey, look! And for people to all collectively turn and look. We don't have that. We can't do it.
Secretly, you can pay money to people who say that Virginia is lying. That's heinous. And so I'm not surprised by today's reporting. We should congratulate our friends at Bloomberg on that reporting coup. 18,000 emails is nothing to sneeze at, and I sure would love to get my hands on them and see them. But should we be surprised that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't telling Todd Blanche the complete truth? Absolutely not.
Well, to just
He's a felon.
emphasize your point about how heinous that was, there's a statement today from the family of Virginia Giuffre. This is what they write. These emails from Bloomberg only further illustrate why the DOJ should never negotiate with someone willing to do or say anything to secure a deal. Ghislaine Maxwell deserves to rot in a maximum security prison for her heinous crimes. The fact that she has been afforded the luxury of sitting in a minimum security prison is a disgrace to our sister.
Another example of, like, is America just choosing to have selective vision right now? Did America not just see Trump have a private deal with Ghislaine Maxwell that led to her getting more favorable arrangements for her pedophile prison sentence? Like, Trump, who is very clearly allegedly on the Epstein files, privately talks to Epstein's old bottom bitch. Now all of a sudden she's coming out to say he's nothing but a gentleman, while also getting an upgrade and a softening of her sentence to everything across the... Like, is America fucking blind right now? Is the country that is made up of like 30% QAnon believers unable to connect the dots all of a sudden?
Survivors and the justice system. This is corruption at its finest. It's time to stand firm and demand justice for all survivors. No more excuses, no more delays. I think what I was reminded of today by the Bloomberg reporting is that we talk about paths to accountability, some of the legal paths that we're seeing, whether they be in the form of lawsuits, some of these efforts on the part of the House Oversight Committee, the Kana Massey discharge petition. But there's also the reality that good journalism puts the focus back on these survivors, on these stories, and points out holes in Ghislaine Maxwell's own retelling of the story.
Absolutely, and I want to highlight another journalist who's done sensational work in this area, Julie K. Brown, who was the first person, perhaps, to really thoroughly excavate what had happened here. She has an ongoing legal proceeding to unseal even more of the civil litigation files.
Like, we gotta get a platform, man. Like, this has never been a more perfect case to argue to you guys why it's important to like and comment on the videos if you want to support them. If you don't know what to comment, you can just comment, release the files. Just boost it in the algorithm. But in all seriousness, and that was serious, but seriously though, the left needs platforms. It needs a larger platform. Because so often, the debate can be won on a global or national scale if the left just had the reach necessary to get a critical mass of people to pay attention to what is just happening. Like, you don't even have to make an argument. Just say, hey, take a look. But they're not looking. They're not looking at us, so we can't redirect their attention. We have to get the platform to get them to pay attention to this kind of stuff. They aren't even hearing us. We're Walter White in the car yelling, Hank! Hank, no! Don't do it, Hank! And he's not hearing us. His AirPods are in.
And there's been a recent Second Circuit decision that has put it back in the hands of a district court judge here in Manhattan to unseal more of those files. And so we can and expect more of these things to come out, not through a congressional investigation, not through the DOJ's own willingness to share it with us, but because there are people like Jason Leopold and his team at Bloomberg and Julie K. Brown and the Miami Herald, and perhaps even some folks here at MSNBC who will uncover more of that truth. Alicia.
I want to shift to the future, short term. A week from now, you're going to have depositions beginning. The schedule right now starts on the September 19th with Alex Acosta, then goes to Eric Holder, Merrick Garland, James Comey, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. Acosta is a big piece of this storyline, and we've talked about that. I'm curious your thoughts.
I got to admit, I am really curious about the Hillary and Bill Clinton stuff, because here's my bet, okay? I think Bill Clinton's a creep. And I don't know about Hillary Clinton. I'm going to be real. Like, I feel like Hillary Clinton was getting cheated on by Bill Clinton with children. And Hillary Clinton knew Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell on a professional level. Like, the more I see of Hillary Clinton, I like to think I've got a decent radar for knowing, like, people. she's just kind of like smart and knows her job well and cares about doing it and just doesn't have very radical left-wing or right-wing beliefs. Like, she's just kind of, she's very much just a politician, but she's also competent. She's not dumb, but she's also not maniacally smart, you know? Like, I don't know. I just don't buy she doesn't come off as pedo-y to me, is my point. Like, and she also doesn't come off as the kind of sadistic person who, even if she's not a pedo per se, sadistically gets off on hurting kids, for example, right? Like, that just doesn't seem like what she's actually into. Like, that really feels like it's just like QAnon adrenochrome nonsense.
Thoughts about the rest on that schedule. What does that say to you? Why do you think they're being called? What do you think they have to offer, legal versus political?
Let's start with Merrick Garland, because that's the one that I have the biggest question mark about. To my mind, Merrick Garland doesn't belong on this list. At the time that Merrick Garland was the Attorney General, Ghislaine Maxwell was approaching trial. And the Department of Justice has said, and this is one thing that I continue to believe from administration to administration is in fact the case, that while there are many people who sanction the conduct, turn the other way to the conduct, that is a political and an ethical abomination. But what it's not is a crime. And so was there anything further for Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to follow up on while he was Attorney General? I don't think so. I think most of those people against whom the Department of Justice at the time could predicate a criminal investigation were investigated. And one more thing, Michael, that I want to add here. When we talk about criminal accountability...
To be clear, though, like, there's been too much fishy shit when it comes to Epstein for us to believe it unless we get the released files. There's, like, the 2005 Florida case is so weird, dude. Can I give you guys a quick recap on that without, I guess, dragging things out for too long or taking too long to find it? Epstein, 2005 Florida case summary. Dude, this shit was so weird. There's no way we have to... I can't not feel like there's something weird going on. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida began investigating Jeffrey Epstein after the family of a 14-year-old girl reported she had been molested at his mansion. This initial complaint led to a broader investigation that uncovered numerous allegations of abuse involving underage girls. The case ultimately ended in a highly criticized plea deal in 2008 that allowed Epstein to avoid any serious federal charges. On March 2005, the investigation was launched after the parents of 14-year-old girl reported to police that Epstein had molested their daughter at his Palm Beach mansion. The girl's account described being paid for a massage that escalated into sexual abuse. In the following months, other high school-age girls came forward with similar accounts, reporting that Epstein hired them for massages that turned sexual. In October 2005, police executed a search warrant on Epstein's mansion and found evidence suggesting he had been tipped off, as several computers that investigators sought were missing. In May 2006, the Palm Beach police prepared to charge Epstein with multiple counts of unlawful sexual acts with a minor, but the state's attorney office, led by Barry Kreischer, took the unusual step of sending the case to a grand jury. And then in July of 2006, the grand jury indicted Epstein on a single felony charge of soliciting prostitution, an outcome criticized by police officials who believe the charge did not reflect the extent of his crimes. This led to the Palm Beach Police Department to refer the case to the FBI for a potential federal investigation. What happened in 2006? Barry Kreischer, why did he move the case up to a grand jury? Why did he choose to do that? And why are there rumors that he was told by someone within United States intelligence to make that decision? That has been a very commonly echoed and circulated rumor. Dude, after a case as unusual as that, and a prison death as unusual as Epstein's, yeah, we want to see everything. We want to smell ourselves to see if there's fish in the air. We want to smell it and find out if it's fishy ourselves.
Accountability, it's complicated. A lot of the people that could have been held responsible are people that we might see in a new light today. Like Haley Robson, who stood up at that press conference and said, my life has been ruined. Death threats have been lodged against me. I have been described as a co-conspirator, but in actuality, I was Jeffrey Epstein's victim. Did I recruit other people to lessen the impact and the harm on me? Yeah, I did that. But one of the reasons you don't see more people having been prosecuted is because I would venture a guess that Haley Robson is far from alone in that there are scores of other women that in the press and media have been described as recruiters, but in actuality, and hopefully some of them will come out of the shadows and talk further, in actuality, they themselves were abused by Jeffrey Epstein for years.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's this like, it's this dilemma morally of like, this happens a lot in sex trafficking circles. It's really common. So I'll make an analogy. Let's say during the chattel slavery era of the United States, you've got like people being forced to work the field. They're slaves. They're forced to work the fields. And then you've got a guy who's like, he's also black. He is considered a slave. He has no rights, all that horrible shit. But he's higher ranking than all the rest. You know, he's like Steven from Django Unchained. He like commands people. He gives orders. He swings his dick around and acts like he's better than everyone else. Just because he's seen as slightly less subhuman than every other black person on the plantation, right? If that person uses their position to then unleash as much brutality, violence as possible on those under them, quote unquote, in the abuse hierarchy, despite themselves receiving abuse, you could make the argument that aren't the white slave owner abuser, like with them gone, that abuse dynamic would break down, and that individual would be a good person and would not be forced into committing these horrible acts they would otherwise not want to do, but they do it for their own safety, as I think most people would agree is the most reasonable, defensible thing you can do, most things, is to protect yourself. But I feel as though there's also the argument that even under those circumstances, to engage in those actions, and even to help facilitate the slave ownership and torture of slaves of a white slave master, even if it's just to protect yourself, that is arguably just as, if not in a way, worse than that slave master, right? Like, that's kind of the way to look at it. It's sort of a philosophical thing of like, is being forced into being an abuser by an abuser as bad at or worse than like is it being caused by, is it a chicken or the egg situation, you know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here.
I just will note that there is criminal accountability, and then there is some of the actions are not criminal, and the UK,
like Ghislaine Maxwell. Listen, I'm sure Ghislaine Maxwell got abused by Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sure many of these other, like, under Ghislaine traffickers / victims got abused by Epstein. But they also recruited a lot of girls. They also might have themselves been forced by Epstein to abuse a lot of girls. And it's like, were they forced by Epstein to do it? Yes. Had they refused, would they have been hurt? Yes. Had they refused, would less girls have been hurt? Arguably, yes. So then there's a legal and moral argument of like, did the Epstein victims that Epstein made contribute to his criminal empire and made participate in the abuse? Are they in any way culpable? And if not, or if so or if not, is it was to protect myself from further hurt from Epstein a viable defense for why they abused others under Epstein's orders? There is an argument to be made there that, like, no, it's no excuse. They're just as bad as Epstein. And there's also an excuse to be made of, like, no, what the fuck? They were being threatened by a sex trafficker. You wouldn't do the same if you were being threatened by a sex trafficker? I can see both sides of the argument.
Ambassador is a good example. UK fired its ambassador to Washington over the emails to Jeffrey Epstein, not saying that he participated in any of the conduct, but the mere association.
Just the way it was. Lisa Rubin, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, man. It is rough to say it, but I don't know if we're going to get these Jeffrey Epstein files. If we do, it's only going to be because of the hard, diligent work of the Democrats fighting against the Republicans in Congress to keep it locked up and away from the American people. And the hardest part of all of it is the fact that, like, the left doesn't really have the platform or the megaphone necessary to, like, yell out to America, hey, stop paying attention to this stupid Charlie Kirk thing. This is what matters. The Republicans are out in the open hiding the Epstein files from you. Look at the Democrats and how hard they're fighting to make them release them. Look how hard the Republicans want to hide them. Who do you think they're hiding them for, guys? Hey, America, who are the Republicans hiding the Epstein files for? Who do you think? Take a guess. I wish. I only wish. Anyway, folks, if y'all enjoyed this video, like I said, consider leaving a like and a comment down below. Really helps a lot, helps to boost the channel, helps to fight back in the algorithm against all the right-wing nonsense out there. Consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you haven't already. Really does help a lot to, let you know if I upload anything new. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, I've got social medias linked down below in the description. Highly recommend you check them out. It really does mean a lot if you do. And finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.